There's a type of parent nobody really talks about. Not the struggling one, not the resentful one, not the one who makes it look effortless on social media. The one who actually does it alone, quietly, without falling apart, without asking for much, without letting anyone see how heavy it actually is. And if you look at them from the outside, they seem fine, more than fine, competent, steady, like they've got it figured out. But here's what psychology says is actually happening inside that person. The capability isn't just strength, it's a nervous system that got quietly rewired by years of being the only one. And once you understand how that rewiring works, you'll never see capable single parents the same way again, including yourself. There's a particular psychology that develops inside people who parent alone, not a broken one, not a damaged one, a highly adapted one. Your brain didn't malfunction. It reorganized. It built systems and routines and invisible architecture specifically because the alternative was falling apart. And falling apart wasn't an option you had. Someone had to be the steady one. It was always going to be you. That's not a character flaw. That's a nervous system doing exactly what it was designed to do: survive, protect, provide. And here's the first thing most people get completely wrong about capable single parents. They look at the competence and assume confidence. They assume it comes from somewhere solid, somewhere secure. But psychology tells a very different story about where it actually comes from. The competence doesn't come from feeling safe. It comes from learning very early that safety wasn't guaranteed. Your brain didn't get good at holding everything together because you're naturally organized. It got good because it had to, because unpredictability had a real cost and you were the only one paying it. You plan 3 steps ahead. You pack the extra snack, the backup outfit, the charger nobody else remembered. You think in contingencies, not because you're a control freak, but because contingency planning is the only thing standing between a normal Tuesday and a genuinely bad day. Researchers call this a high-demand adaptive response. Your nervous system identified an environment where chaos had consequences, and it responded by becoming a prediction machine. And it worked. That's the part worth sitting with. It actually worked. But here's the part nobody talks about. That same system that kept everything running also quietly made rest feel dangerous. A brain trained for vigilance doesn't know how to stand down just because the kids are asleep. It keeps scanning, keeps planning, keeps waiting for the next thing to catch. You lie down and your brain writes tomorrow's to-do list. You sit still for 5 minutes and your mind is already in next week. Somewhere deep in your nervous system, stillness got associated with something getting missed. So you keep moving, not because you want to, because stopping feels like a risk you can't calculate. Now here's where it gets genuinely surprising. Most people assume that capable single parents struggle most with the big things: the money, the logistics, the impossible schedule. But research on emotional load tells a different story. The thing that quietly erodes people isn't the crisis. It's the absence of someone to share the ordinary moment with. Something funny happens and you turn to say something, and there's nobody there. A decision needs to be made, and you realize the entire conversation is happening inside your own head. You become your own sounding board, your own counsel, your own reassurance. Psychologists call this the collapse of co-regulation. Humans are wired to regulate their emotional state partly through other people. A shared look, a touch, someone exhaling when you exhale. It's not dramatic, it's subtle. And when it disappears, your nervous system has to build the internal version from scratch. You learn to self-soothe in ways most adults never have to develop. And over time, that self-sufficiency stops feeling like a coping strategy and starts feeling like just who you are. Asking for help starts to feel like a language you used to speak, but slowly forgot the words to. And here's the paradox at the center of all of it. The more capable you become, the more invisible your struggle gets. Because you're so good at holding it together, people stop checking if you're okay. They assume you are. You've trained everyone around you, including yourself, to believe that you don't really need anything. And the longer you hold it together, the more permanent that assumption becomes. But underneath that, your nervous system is running a program it never got to shut off. Watch what happens as your child gets older. When they're small, the vigilance is physical. Is the stove off? Is the door locked? Is the temperature okay? But as they grow, it evolves. Now you're reading their friendships, their silences, the specific way they answer a question that tells you something is off. The vigilance changes form, but never actually stops. Because your nervous system made a promise somewhere early on, and it has been keeping it every single day since. Nothing slips through. Not on your watch. What looks like hypervigilance from the outside is just love with nowhere to delegate. The routines matter more than people think. Tuesday means tacos. Sunday means something slow on the television. Bath before bed always. These aren't just habits for the sake of efficiency. They're doing something psychological. When relationships didn't hold, when plans fell apart, when you had to rebuild from something that broke you, the routine was the thing that didn't break. It became an anchor, a familiar room your nervous system could return to when everything else felt uncertain. Not a cage, a home inside a life that sometimes didn't feel like one. And there's a grief that capable single parents rarely name. Not the grief of the loss itself, though that may be there too. The grief of the version of parenting you imagined. The one where someone else remembers the dentist appointment. The one where you could be genuinely sick without calculating who handles pickup. You didn't just lose a relationship or a plan. You lost the specific version of ease that comes from not carrying all of it alone. And you rarely get to mourn that because mourning requires stillness, and stillness is expensive. So you keep moving. Your capability becomes your armor and your identity at the same time. The two get so fused that you sometimes can't feel where the coping ends and where you begin. But here's what's true underneath all of it. You are not a function. You are a person who was handed something enormous and did not put it down. That's not the absence of vulnerability. That's vulnerability that kept showing up anyway. Every single morning, that brain of yours, the one that plans and predicts and scans and holds it all and refuses to ask for help and loves so hard it became a full-time job, that brain is not damaged. It is the result of a very specific kind of devotion, the kind that doesn't ask to be noticed, the kind that just keeps going. You didn't become capable because it was easy. You became capable because someone needed you to be, and you were, every day, without applause, without a backup, without anyone fully understanding what that cost. That's not a wound. That's one of the most quietly extraordinary things a person can do. If this spoke to you, consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next one.